Welcome to Blackbird episode number 24. My name is James, and today I'm joined by Adam, the Agorist Alamano. Adam is one half of the great Debra Gets Red Pilled podcast. If you're interested in agorism and conspiracy theories and just really great conversations featuring a son-in-law and his formerly blue-pilled mother-in-law, then I highly recommend checking out Debra Gets Red Pilled. And I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. Before we get started, let me remind you that Juliet Nail, a friend of the show, is ready to welcome you back into your body at BU Enterprises. Head to buenterprises.com today to set up a consultation. She teaches yoga and Pilates classes, but beyond that, takes kind of a holistic approach to personal wellness. So to take your wellness back into your control, head over to buenterprises.com. And with that, here is my interview with Adam, the Agorist Alamano. Adam, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
For sure. So this is your first time on the show. I discovered you from Monica Perez, who was a previous guest. So why don't you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself, tell the audience more about you and your podcast.
Yeah. So my name's Adam. I live in a little town, little working class suburb of Portland, Oregon called Milwaukee. And I am a union elevator constructor. I'm an anarchist. I'm an agorist. And I think a lot of people would also describe me as kind of an unhinged conspiracy theorist. I have a podcast called Debra Gets Red Pilled, where my co-host is my mother-in-law, who is, your typical Northern California, Bay Area, lifelong liberal, kind of like limousine liberal. She's from a really wealthy area, statist. And I brought her on the show and just started exposing her to a bunch of crazy conspiracy stuff, anything from 9/11 to flat Earth to the problems with democracy, Tartaria, everything. And, we were like 36 episodes in, and she's coming around. She's admitted that democracy isn't valid. She's a 9/11 truther now, so it's kind of working. She got a vaccine though, so it was hard not to take that one personally.
What is Tartaria? That's the one that you mentioned that I hadn't heard of.
Tartaria, it was like a empire, kind of synonymous with the Mongol Empire. There were people from the Caucasus Mountains, and it's people think that they had gone all throughout the whole world and created civilizations, and even here in North America up until like the mid 1800s. And then a giant cataclysmic event that people call the mud flood happened, killed everybody off, whether it was natural or created by some other force, nobody knows. And so a lot of people think that these big, huge, extravagant structures that were already like in the Western United States, think that they were already there when settlers arrived here, and people reclaimed them and said that they built them, instead of that, in San Francisco, they built this massive courthouse in 1850 when there was 15,000 people in San Francisco.
So how did you get your progressive or liberal, super blue-pilled, I would assume, mother-in-law to sit down with you? Like, what was the conversation leading up to that like?
When I kind of woke up, I haven't been at this for a long time either. I kind of woke up around 2015, like probably the same way a lot of people in our world did. I heard Dave Smith on Joe Rogan, and he made the most sense to me of anybody I'd heard. So around that time, I came from the world of like being like a Bernie supporter. And after that, I just started seeing all the inconsistencies and corruption within the election system and government in general. And I just, at this point in time, it was easier to rail against the left than the right, even though it's pretty easy to rail against both of them. But
real quick, was this like Dave Smith's most recent appearance on Rogan, like in November?
No, it's probably like 2015.
Oh, okay. Man, I was about to say, man, you like went down the rabbit hole super fast. Holy crap. So I'm not as big into conspiracies. I like to know about them. And believe me, there are far worse things to believe than like the wrong history of something or whatever. And of course, I'm not completely incredulous either. I think the best thing about your podcast, though, is just that she's willing to go through with it. Like I said, I my first exposure to it was Monica Perez's appearance where she was talking about the Boston bombing. But you guys have really gone deep into some like even more esoteric stuff. Like I was just this morning listening to I keep forgetting, is it astrotheology or theoastrology?
Yeah, astrotheology.
Yeah. Where, basically he's just making all the connections between the Bible stories and ancient astrology. How do you pick your guests, and do you like try to strike a balance between the more esoteric woo-woo stuff and the more down-to-earth political stuff, or is it just kind of whatever comes up?
It's just like, it's at this point we're not that big, so it's hard to land guests. So the easiest thing for me to do is just reaching out to people with big egos that want their voices to be heard, and that's other podcasters. So That's what I've been kind of focusing on. I've gotten a few authors and stuff on, but those people are like much harder to get in contact with. I try to get like a liberty freedom guest, probably like one out of every 4 or 5 episodes. And it's going well. I got legal man came on, and he really fucked her up. So
he's fantastic.
He's the one that convinced her that democracy isn't valid. But and then at the same time, it's like the cool thing about doing a conspiracy is you get to talk to all these people that you've looked up to for a long time. So I kind of use it for personal reasons that way as well. Like I pick people that I want to talk to. So
I'm assuming that your wife is also from the Bay Area?
Yeah, Marin County. Across the Golden Gate Bridge from
that's
San
really
Francisco.
she then.
Yeah,
that's like where Tyler Florence is. He's like a celebrity chef and has a fancy restaurant and vineyards and all that stuff up there. So okay, that gives me an image of who we're dealing with. Although obviously you can't generalize. But so what about your wife? Is she on board with all this, or is it more just like you and her mom going down rabbit holes together?
My wife was probably along the same lines, like pretty apolitical. Grew up in Northern California, so kind of the same views as her mom had. And I took her to see a Jimmy Dore live performance in Northeast Portland. And like, she's like, she had no idea what we were going to see. She thought we were going to there she is right there. She thought we were going to just like a normal comedy show, which we kind of were, but then it was like total like left-wing comedy. But she's like, she left there and she's like, so wait, those people are all Democrats, but they hate Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. And her mind was blown. And, I think she's just around me a lot. And I think it's easier for her to put up with me if she just kind of goes along with what I think. But as far as like getting on board with freedom and anarchy, we joined Freedom Cells last summer after hearing John Bush on Pete Quinonez's podcast. And, she's made some really good friends from that and been exposed to agorism and just solution-based stuff from that. So that's kind of what we're concentrating on together. But she likes to hear conspiracy stuff too.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Even if, are there any that you like categorically don't buy?
There's some that I don't like. I don't like gematria, which is like numerology.
Oh, that's interesting. That's one that I got into from the movie Pi when I was in high school. I don't know if you've seen it. It came out in like 99 or 90.
I remember seeing it. I don't know if I've ever actually watched it, though.
I got books on it and told my algebra teacher about it, and she was like, "Oh, don't get into that. That's devil stuff." Catholic school, so
Yeah.
And so that made me want to know about it even more. So I started just Googling all about gematria. So okay, cool. So that's one that you're not super into.
I don't discount it. I don't discount anything. I'm kind of trying to be like the Art Bell of the modern era. I want to listen to everybody talk, but I feel like a lot of the time it's people making connections and kind of reaching for stuff like, being like, oh, the number 11, 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 equals the letter Q in the alphabet. Q is 43. And people go on shows and just like talk like that. And I don't know.
Yeah. I think my parents have always kind of been into that too. Not formally, but they find connections in numbers and stuff a whole lot. So you mentioned freedom cells earlier. We're trying to build something here in the Twin Cities, and it's basically we've met once, and it was at a bar, and so far it's just a big Telegram chat. Do you have advice for building a more sort of substantial presence in the freedom cells movement?
Let's see. So when I joined, I heard that podcast. I was out walking the dogs. I went home and signed up for it and got messaged by somebody that day and said, hey, we're meeting in the park. You want to come? And I was like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable and weird, but I'll go give it a shot. I went to the park. There's 6 people sitting on a blanket. And we had a meetup last night, and there was like 60 people there. Oh. We have a Telegram chat. There's over 85 people in it. Or no, I think over 100 now. And to be in the Telegram chat, you have to have attended one of the meetups. So there's been at least 100 different people at our meetups. I don't know how ours kind of just grew organically, and I maybe don't rely solely on the Freedom Cells network to try to recruit people, if that's what you're trying to do. Ours started from the actual meetup app, Freedom Cells, and believe it or not, Nextdoor. Are you familiar with that app?
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, it's fucking awful. It was a lot of like older women who just like complained about having to wear a mask that were coming to these meetups from Nextdoor. A few of them stuck around, but as soon as we started talking about like solutions and getting into action and like anarchy and like having to do things for yourself, most of them faded away. But I think there's a few that are still around. So
cool. Yeah, that's my one biggest concern. We're starting with Telegram and scheduling our meetups within that chat, which is super disorganized. So maybe I'll actually look into Meetup or something similar. I know Meetup charges. So
how's the climate where you're living in the Twin Cities? So that must have been wild last summer, right?
Yeah. I was actually down in Dallas the weekend that all that popped off.
Yeah.
So we were watching it on like Facebook live streams and stuff, which is, it's fortunate because if we were here, we would have just been hearing it, but we were actually getting like a front and center. Because my partner has a lot of like trans and queer friends, and so they're all activists. Like his best friend was one of the people pouring milk in people's eyes to get rid of the tear gas or pepper spray or whatever it was. So we had like a front row seat watching the police station getting stormed and then burned down and all that stuff. And actually, I was just there, like at the gym across the street from that cop shop. It's still burned out. They're not using it.
Bummer.
Which to me, like it's whatever. But I also don't live in that neighborhood. My partner's parents do, and they're terrified. Like they're really scared of not being able to call the police if something happens. Of course, they're also the kind of people who would call the police if someone's doing a weed deal on their corner. But so it's definitely kind of a bittersweet thing for me. I'd love to see some sort of private security force, and they were really talking about it. The activists were talking about buying an ambulance to just completely disentangle themselves from the 911 system. They're doing community policing or community security, I guess.
Yeah. So the problem with that is depends on what kind of activists these people that become the private security are. Yeah. And they're not going to come help me. So
I know it's nuts.
All changes when you get money involved though. So that's the good part.
So you're like doing all kinds of like urban farming on a relatively small lot. And that is something like I'm thinking here, I'm going to have to go move out to the country and buy 3 acres if I'm going to be able to, feed myself. If I really wanted to get some sort of like self-reliant presence in the world, I'm going to have to go like the Jack Spearco route.
Yeah.
But you're disproving that. Had you ever raised chickens or whatever before you started all this stuff?
Before I moved to Oregon in summer 2018, I lived in 1-bedroom and studio apartments in Oakland and San Francisco for the last 15 years. So no, I hadn't done anything. I had a basil plant that I bought at Trader Joe's that I'd use every once in a while, but that was it. And, we have, for what we're used to from where we came from, we have a decent sized backyard, but we live like in the suburbs. We have, I think it's about 1/8 of an acre is what it translates to. And we have 7 egg-laying hens. And we've had those since last April, so almost a year now. And we're getting, 150 eggs a month out of them. And
that's a lot of eggs.
Yeah, it is. A ton. Luckily, I like eggs, and then we have people that we sell eggs for $8 a dozen when we get too many. And they're good eggs. They're awesome. They're all different colors. They're blue. There's ones that are like OD green and brown, and it's cool. We can tell which chicken lays each egg. But it's I watch a lot of YouTube, even though it's pretty bad for free speech, but it's good for like figuring out how to do like farming and homesteading stuff. So if you, I was going down all these chicken rabbit holes, and it's funny, if you go down deep enough into chicken stuff on YouTube, you always end up on these weird Filipino sites. But
all right,
I eventually got to the place where like I started watching people processing meat birds. I think the first thing I saw like a Joel Salatin seminar. I saw him kill a chicken, have a live chicken, dispatch it, and have it processed in like 3 minutes. And I was like, I could probably do that. And
were they doing it by hand or with a machine?
The actual killing?
No, the plucking.
They had a plucker.
Okay.
So I was like, the government definitely doesn't want me to do that in the backyard, and I could physically do that, so I'm going to do it. And we ordered 12 Cornish cross chickens, got them delivered to the post office, went and picked them up, and raised them for they get to market weight in 2 months, and then I took care of everything in the backyard, and it worked. They're huge.
Are you breeding them too, or just gonna buy more?
We bought. I've already ordered more. What I learned from last time is I'm not going to do it in cold weather months. I don't want. They smell really bad. And you have to brood them indoors if it's like cold outside. So I had them in like our mud room, and it kind of stunk up the house. They make a huge mess. So I'm only going to do it when there's no more like freezing temperatures anymore, and I can have them out in the chicken coop with a heat lamp all the time. And then this time around, I want to be able to graze them on our lawn. So, we ordered 12 last time. They sent 13. 3 of them died real early. And then we took care of 10, and they made it all the way 2 months. Probably could have gone a week less because they were huge. One of them was 9 pounds.
Jesus.
That's and
like a turkey.
Yeah, it's like a small turkey. And I tried to do like a beer can chicken, and even like on a tall can, it wouldn't stand up. And so I just had to like lay it flat like a turkey. But I just ordered 16 more. I ordered 10 Cornish cross hens, and then I ordered these other kind called Freedom Rangers, which actually take a month longer to get to market weight. So I'm going to feed them less and, try to kind of get it perfected. And I'm looking forward to doing it again. It's a long day of, it was my wife, me, and another friend, and none of us had ever done it before. So we rented a plucker, like an electric plucker, and it worked pretty well. They were pretty big though, so it kind of bogged down the machine. And so we kind of like had to figure out how to kind of pluck them by hand as much as we could real fast first, and then put them in there. And it did okay. So
what do you do with like the blood and guts?
I poured it in the compost pile.
Oh, nice. Good.
Yeah.
So what, like, was it tough? Like, is it tough to kill an animal the first time, or?
The first one was kind of hard, and it's kind of disturbing how easy the 10th one was.
I can imagine. Oh my God.
So like the first one, you're all like kind of hesitant, and by the last one, you're just like, all right, this is it, What
about like veggies? Are you gardening too?
Yeah. That's harder than raising chickens. Gardening's way harder, just to get it down how to do it. I built, my backyard was kind of like an overgrown mess when I moved in. So the first summer and fall and spring, we're like getting it cleaned up and cutting down a ton of trees and giant laurel bushes, building a new fence. And I kind of like landscaped it, and I built a bunch of really big raised beds. So last summer we had a huge amount of stuff, like a whole bunch of different kinds of lettuce, cucumbers, peas, tomatoes, onions, all sorts of stuff. And, for like June, July, August, it was really good. And then we had too much for that time, and then it all kind of went away at once. So this year we're going to kind of try to figure out how to stagger everything. I've built a greenhouse, but I just didn't get around to covering it last year. So I got like the frame built. And I have the plastic in the backyard. I got to cover it and work on keeping stuff going in the winter, and maybe canning some stuff that we're not going to be able to eat because we had so much. So that's the goal this year, to try to be more sufficient for the whole year. But
that's great.
During the summer, we definitely were eating like giant salads like 3 times a day. So
yeah, I just canned salsa. But the very first thing I ever canned, I made salsa. So
did you use like a water bath canner for it?
Yeah, and I use citric acid to raise the pH or lower the pH. Make it more acidic
in the actual salsa.
Yeah,
okay.
You just it's just like a powdered thing, and you use a pH.
Yeah.
Test strip,
and that helps to preserve it.
Yeah, it makes it so that it doesn't grow botulism and whatever other nasties tend to grow in tomato-based stuff.
Yeah, I haven't done. I made pickles and sauerkraut. Oh yeah, we had cabbage. Cabbage was awesome, but I replanted more after we picked it, and then my little pit bull ate them all. So yeah, all the canning we did, none of it was like pressure sealed or anything. We just kind of did the kind where you get it to seal in the refrigerator. But I have a water bath canner, and I want to do that just so stuff's more shelf stable.
Yeah, that's my next big project, is learning more and more about canning. I'm already growing vegetables, which is neat. That's new to me. I don't have much of a yard, and we're renting, but my landlady is going to give me a little plot once the ground thaws. We're still frozen up here, but not for much longer. Actually, I think it's supposed to get into the 60s this week.
Nice.
Yeah, so she built me a little, not like a full raised bed, but just a little in-ground bed to plant my vegetables. Our next door neighbor is real big into gardening too. So, and she owns both houses, which is nice. Yeah. So what are you doing? What are you doing with the excess? Are you selling stuff? Or are you just going to be preserving it forever, or until it's time to eat?
The excess vegetables?
Yeah. Excess vegetables, if you have extra chickens or whatever, are they just going in the freezer, or are you going to try to monetize this stuff, kind of build a little gray market food business?
Like right now, it's hard. Like making money off of chickens, meat birds is hard, because I'm not really sure what people sell a pasture raised chicken for at like a farmer's market, but it's expensive. I think it's like $5 a pound.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and then that would be profitable. But if you're like trying to sell it for what I think you can get like a nice chicken at Whole Foods or some, nicer grocery store for like $12 probably. So you really got to have people that are like willing. I probably wouldn't spend $25 on a chicken if, there was one for sale. So it's hard to make money on the extra chickens. The eggs are just kind of like, spending money. And the meat birds, I have 2 chest freezers in the garage, so I kind of want to get just enough in the warm weather months. I'll probably do 16 in at the start of June. I'll be able to process those, and then maybe do another run that I take care of in the fall, and have enough to get like through the year until the next time I do it. So that's kind of the goal there. Eventually the goal is to get the hell out of town, get 5 farmable acres in some place that's not here. And, it'd be really cool if I could transform all the stuff that I have now into some land that I could farm. And that'd be my dream, to be a chicken farmer. So
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But your Freedom Cell, you guys also are doing like actual Agora stuff, right? Like you're bartering and selling and stuff, right?
Yeah. So we have meetups every other week, and that's the problem. It's like a lot of people talking about what they're going to do and like not a lot of action really getting done. So I decided, just look at like there's people that are in the Telegram that like are in there at 5 a.m. and still writing it at 11 o'clock, So I decided maybe on the once a month or something like that, we could have a potluck at my house just to get people together. And then I was like, wait, instead of a potluck, why don't we do like an agora, like an underground farmers market? And so we had one around Christmas time, and it kind of just was like a Christmas gala. Like we made beef jerky, smoked salmon. My wife makes like candles, and like people, I was just like, come over with a table and let's see what happens. Don't bring your old shit. I don't want it to be a garage sale. Bring like stuff that you've made, and people brought all sorts of stuff. And more than that, it was just getting people together in somebody's house when it's like not allowed by our fucking governor. And just doing it, defying mandates, and people just meeting and having a good time. So we've had 2 of those. The second one, there's like 30 people. The downstairs of my house is like 1,000 square feet, so it's a lot.
Oh, nice.
So I think we've found some alternate spaces, and we're gonna move it to there and try to keep doing them, and just getting like a lot of people haven't had much experience with crypto, and then a lot of people that have crypto have never used it for something, just have just sat on it. So people are operating with crypto, cash, and there's a community credit system too. I don't take part in it, but it's kind of like an old school ledger blockchain where everybody starts at 0. Like you have something that you want to sell for 1 credit. I take it from you. I go -1, you go +1. You report it to the guy that holds the ledger, and everything always should equal 0 when everything's added back together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And my issue with it is that it's the value of stuff is based on the dollar. So like it's just going to be subject to the same inflation. But people are doing that, and it's pretty cool. There's a guy who manages a apartment complex here in another little suburb outside of town. And at one point in like 2010, he had like a whole like Samuel Conkin style, like had like the whole place was like 50% ANCAP people. And they did markets and did the whole thing with that community credit. So that's another option, bartering and all that. So I'm just trying to get people in the space where like we might actually have to do this for real someday if we don't want to get, experimental gene therapy shot into our bodies.
So are most of your meetups at parks or at homes or public places? Or what's the deal there?
So we, the weather here sucks. I mean, it's not as cold as where you are, but it's, it rains nonstop. So at the end of the summer, we had to stop having them at parks just because it wasn't feasible because of the weather. So one of the guys that started coming, he's a massage therapist, and he operates at this kind of woo-woo place in Southeast Portland that has like different, holistic healing type people at it. And they had a big room, and he let us use it. Everybody donated a couple bucks. And so some people, we were there for a long time. It was really great. And then some people had their kids there, and you were supposed to, like, when you left the room, you were supposed to put a mask on to go to the bathroom, even though it was like 5 feet away. And some people's kids were like messing around in the kitchen. And one of the people that works there that has different views than we do on this pandemic came in and saw a bunch of unmasked little kids and freaked out. So we can't do it there anymore, Lord. But there's people that are showing up. Like some people came to the meetup last night and were like, we own a furniture store. We're not selling shit, but we have this space and we would, you guys are allowed to use it. So yeah, just stuff kind of keeps magically appearing when we need it most.
That's really cool. We used to have this warehouse space. This was back in the Ron Paul days. That I didn't know it, but it was owned by this nightclub owner. I thought that our like local agorist organizer owned it, but he just kind of occupied it. It was owned by this nightclub owner who, a few years ago, it turned out like had donated to David Duke's campaign, so he got canceled.
Yeah.
So he doesn't. We don't have that warehouse space anymore. But we do have an acupuncturist, similar situation. She wants to let us use her clinic, and then we got a yoga instructor, and I don't know if he's going to join us or not, but we have a chiropractor in the area who's super anti-mask, and like he put up film on the windows of his clinic so that you couldn't see in to see like his receptionist sitting there with no mask on and stuff. That's how like dedicated he is to this. So we've got potential indoor spaces, but our parks are great here too. It's just that I'm scared of Karen walking past, seeing all these people potentially with tables up doing market activities and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, to have an actual market at the park.
Yeah, there's definitely considerations to take.
Yeah,
but
if someone called the police on you in a park there, would they come?
I don't know. Probably. I mean,
yeah.
Well, maybe not. I don't really know.
What if you did it in the hood?
Yeah, that's possible. I live in the hood, so the cops are here, but they're not messing with people really.
Yeah.
Which is
I lived in East Oakland for forever, and if you looked like I do there and you weren't murdering somebody, I could do anything I want, until about 2014, where it got super duper gentrified, and then it was all different. So,
oh God, I had a great question for you, and I don't remember what it was. I'll try to think of it, but let's skip into your. How are you so productive? Because like you've got a podcast, and you've got a urban farm basically, and you've got a job, and you are doing constant research, and also I know you watch television for entertainment because you've talked about watching TV on your podcast. When do you sleep? What's your like day-to-day life look like?
Monday through Thursday, I work 10 hours a day. I get up at 5 o'clock, get to work by 6:30, finish at 4:30, come home, hang out, eat some dinner, chill on the couch. And I do jujitsu too. So if I can, I'll get to a jujitsu class at a secret location that never closed down in Portland, Oregon. But it's cool because I work 4/10, so I have 3-day weekends every week. So I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday every week. And I don't drink. I've been sober for a real long time. And so I'm never hungover. And my wife kind of sleeps in, and I'm the kind of person that just needs to keep going to keep my like crazy mind at bay. So like if I'm doing something, the demons don't creep in quite as much. So there's it's cool. Like I hated doing yard work when I didn't own a house, but once that property is sort of yours, it's really the banks and the states. But I was resigned to the fact that I was never ever going to get to own a house when I lived in the Bay Area, and I got here and I own this little old house that I love so much, and I just want to make it nice, and I'm pretty handy. I can kind of watch videos on YouTube or look at stuff online and figure out how to do things pretty easily. So I always try to have different projects in the works, and I hate the fucking state. I want to do things for myself,
What about living in the suburbs? Is that weird for you? The audience can't see you, but you're bald-headed and tatted up, and your wife looks like she could be playing bass in a rock band. So, like, do you fit in? Do you find that the neighbors are like shun you? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter to me at all. I care about my wife, my dogs, my future babies, and that's about it. But it has not been an issue at all. I don't know. I don't know if it's the way I carry myself. I don't know if it's the fact that people are used to it nowadays, and it's like not that big a deal to have neck and hand tattoos. And like when I lived in the Bay Area, everybody that's my age and young and my color looked like me. So, but up here, I mean, people aren't quite as tattooed in Portland, but I think I just try to be nice to people and talk kindly, and I'm not doing, weird shit. And people are, I've spent a tremendous amount of time in rural Oregon in the last 2 years, and I haven't noticed any people acting strange towards me at all.
That's great. So when you say rural, like how far are you from Portland?
About 3 miles over the border.
Oh, so you're like close.
Yeah, although it takes me 14 minutes to get to the courthouse where all the riots are.
Wow. Although I hear that like outside of Portland is basically Alabama. Is that right?
Maybe like Nebraska. Yeah.
Okay. That's a little calmer, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really beautiful, awesome state. I love the Pacific Northwest, and I really wish I could stay here. I don't know what's going to happen, but the weather kind of sucks. But when it's nice here, when it dries out in like May through September here, it's like the most beautiful thing you could ever imagine. And yeah, once you get out of Portland over the border, it's probably 80%, boomer Republican types.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
The boomer Republican types are learning how to mind their own business. I don't have as big a problem with them as I used to. So once they've come around to like not wanting to John McCain everybody, they seem to be kind of all right. Really.
Yeah, they're fine. As long as they I can't talk to them about politics or what we need to do with the police, or the military, but they're not coming to try to take my guns, even though will argue for the same laws that the NRA is trying to push. But I mind my own business. I'm kind to people, and as far as people on the right go, I think that's good enough for most of them. The left would probably want to know what my policies are before they were able to be kind back to me,
And your neighbors don't mind about the chickens?
Neighbors on one side have chickens. Neighbors on the other side are some Native American Section 8 people who don't give a shit. So
that's fortunate. That's really cool.
Yeah. Nobody said anything. So it's a nice, where I live it's like a working class suburb, It's changing, and people from Portland, I think, are going to start moving out here. And we're kind of trying to make the decision of whether or not to get out while there's still a chance to make money. Our house is worth a tremendous amount of money right now compared to what we bought it for. So I'm kind of trying to just make it as appealing as possible to some lesbians that might want to move out here from Portland. And, maybe we're going to maybe sell it, maybe think about maybe selling it and sitting on some cash, maybe turning some of it into crypto until the bubble bursts, and then getting into some land or something like that.
That'd be cool. Y'all could alternatively just try to convince Brian Norton to convert his farm into, just a hippie commune where you can build cabins and just live up there.
Yeah. How do you know those guys?
Oh, Brian's been on the show. He's actually Miguel Duque is my life coach.
Oh wow!
I think Miguel was actually my first guest or first.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So all those Squatch Fest guys, they're the best.
Miguel's really great. Yeah, I only know those guys from Squatch Fest, but it was pretty cool to meet everybody, and there's a pretty strong group of them up in Puget Sound, Seattle area.
Yeah. Actually, Miguel and we actually met through the LP.
Okay.
Which is odd because we're both nominally agorists, but we met at the Libertarian Party convention. So
what's your view? How do you feel about it right now? What's going on with it right now and this whole Mises takeover and all that stuff?
Dude, I am sort of in the Pete Quinones point of view where you're not going to be able to abolish politics, so you might as well have someone in the fray. I'm glad that the Mises Caucus exists. I consider myself a fellow traveler. I donate to them. But
I tried to get involved with the Oregon Mises Caucus. I sent them a bunch of emails when Hornberger was primarying, and they just never got back to me. So
that sucks.
Kind of lost interest. But it just seemed, it's kind of, I was thinking the other day, it's the Mises, it sucks that you have to get ANCAPs lumped in with libertarian, the actual LP, It seems like it's a whole different thing. I don't really even want to call myself a libertarian as long as there's people like Nick Sarwark and Andy Craig in the mix, or Archie Flower,
I just don't understand.
Yeah.
And then there's also the rent is theft types, the ones who look, I have your property norms. I'm not like in the natural law, property is just, that's how. I don't think that Lockean private property would have just come about in every single possible situation. I think that property norms are just norms. So yeah, I mean, like if you want to have a socialist, society where you're not owning your own property, that fine by me. It's not.
Yeah.
But that's not what libertarianism is. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like the big tent philosophy, I guess. Like I'm much more into, we can be different and that's okay. And you don't have to be part of our group and we can still be friendly. In fact, if you're not part of our group, we're more likely to be friendly because we won't have to fucking battle one another over disagreements as to where this group needs to go.
Yeah. Well, do you think it would be better, the whole argument, whether like Mises type minded people, more the ANCAP people should run as Republicans, or do you think they should all run under the LP banner?
I think that in blue states where there's not any chance that, their governor is going to be a libertarian leaning Republican, then it's fine to run on the LP banner. But like, if you're going to be spoiling the election, then if it's going to be close,
like in like a Texas or a Florida or something like that. Yeah.
Like that, I think Eric Brakey makes the argument that, like, look, if there had been a libertarian in the Florida governor race, then Ron DeSantis wouldn't have been the governor, and whoever was the governor would not have reopened their state.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely that's definitely a risk. So I'm not quite in the like all in on that. And it really sucks that like politicians have that much influence over our lives now. Like, prior to 2020, it didn't really matter who the governor was as far as I was concerned. It's not like they were mandating stuff that impacted my life. But now they do. And I hate that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. It sucks. It's weird though. I stay at home and do a lot of stuff here. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we would go out to eat dinner and stuff, and I don't do that anymore. So that's like a bummer. I don't get to go to like comedy shows anymore. I don't know. It's just, I really don't like being out in public anymore. It makes me pretty sad. So I tend to stay at home a lot. And, it kind of sucks. My wife does all the shopping for us, and it's weird. Yeah. It's weird to have to check the news to see what you're allowed to do that day.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. All right. Well, I got another interview coming up, so why don't we go ahead and wrap it up?
Sure.
Where can people find you?
So yeah, my podcast is Debra Gets Red Pilled, available any place you can find podcasts mostly. And email us at debragetsredpilled@protonmail. And we're on Twitter, Debra Gets Pilled, Instagram, all that stuff. You guys know how to use a web browser, so find us, listen to us.
All right, cool. Well, thanks a lot, Adam.
All right. Bye.
Thanks again to Adam for joining me today, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Blackbird. If you haven't already, don't forget to sign up with your email address at blackbird.substack.com so you never miss an episode of the podcast or an article I write. And until next time, live free.